cards tell me that it's Senator Murkowski, Senator Bennett, Senator Alexander in that order. But again, I didn't know if anybody had a specific one.
Can I just
make one point is,
pardon?
I was going to follow up on the mentoring aspect specifically. And I appreciate your comments, Ms. Moyer, because we have seen in Alaska some really very promising results with the teacher mentoring program. And it's been really exciting because we're struggling with some issues as they relate to recruitment and retention, and we're really seeing those gains within the mentoring. But I'm curious, because not everybody is a good teacher and not everybody is a good mentor. So, Mr. Valenzuela, I was interested. You said you were very fortunate you had a good mentor, and the two attributes that you listed was that they were young and they had 9 years of experience. Not necessarily indicators that it's going to be a good match. Tell me how we make sure that we really have good mentors, whether it's for the teachers or the mentors for the principals. And I think that has to be an aspect of what we're doing to provide for these training opportunities and just the further professional development. So I throw that out to the group.
Just before you answer, is this sort of on your point?
It's my point was to say that Ms. Fesmer made a point more eloquently than I've made in a long, long time, which is principals have to be educational leaders, not bus monitors, milk fund trustees, because we all know, right, the principals that have to look out in poor schools to make sure kids have coats. And this ties into accountability too. If we're going to hold people really, I mean, we say they're leaders, but really what gets them fired is if the buses don't run on time or the buildings leak, then they're not going to be educational leaders. So we have to orient our accountability systems and our evaluation systems so that at the end of the day they survive or fail based upon their interaction with teachers and the development of teachers. And if we do that, I think we'll be in good shape. And that you made it better. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Weingarten and Ms. Benbow.
Senator, you can do this in terms of residency programs and some career ladder programs that some of the districts are doing, some are not. But if you create a career ladder program... You really have to pull that mic. I'm sorry. Sorry. If you create career ladder programs and some of these kind of residency programs that some of the speakers are talking about, Ellen has created them, others I'm sure have created them. We've created them in New York City when I was there. But a career ladder program would be one where you identify great teachers, not simply, I mean, I'm always leery about using one point of data. Through a multiple measure process, you create lead teachers. We did that in South Bronx. We then had them work intensively with new teachers, and we saw the South Bronx scores soar in the next year. So there's ways of doing that in terms of both growing your own in residency programs as well as career ladders.
Benbow, did you have a...
Yes, we have actually developed a instrument to measure the effectiveness of school leadership. And if you want to have a mentor, you want an effective school leader. And through the research, we have identified several components of what makes a good leader. There are high standards for student learning. They promote rigorous curriculum. They themselves can demonstrate quality instruction. They promote a culture of learning and professional behavior. They are strong connections to the community, and they believe in performance accountability. There are other things like planning, implementing, and supporting. But yes, there are ways of identifying who are the effective principals, and those are the ones that you want to be as mentors. Of course, there are other attributes of being a mentor to being able to be a coach and so on that goes beyond that. But I think that's the first stop that you need to get to. Thank you.
Mr. Valenzuela, do you have a point on this?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that it's not just that my mentor was young. She was 31 at the time, but had spent 9 years teaching across different districts. So it wasn't just that, but I think her open-mindedness about allowing another individual into the classroom. I know other teachers can speak to this, but there's something territorial about a classroom that you want to run your show in the way that you are comfortable. And I think good mentors allow experimentation. They allow teachers who are learning the craft to try different things. So I think it's not that a resident is your assistant and photocopier and and gets coffee. It's that you're really trying things that you're learning in graduate courses. And mentors definitely need training. I know our program spends a lot of time giving mentors opportunities to learn about how to include teachers in the process of planning, instruction, all the things that have been mentioned here. So I think on the very fundamental level, mentor-resident relationships are just that. They're a relationship that require teacher collaboration at the most essential level, because you are with a mentor for an entire year. You spend a lot of hours with that person. So those are the things that I would say make a strong relationship.
Ms. Moyer, then Mr. Schnur, then we'll go to Senator Bennett.
Great. I'll just tie into what Jose just said. So I think that historically we sort of think of as maybe a mentor or coach as the buddy next door who has time on their timetable. We're talking about something very rigorous, about careful selection. And so the criteria we think about is that the teacher, him or herself, has to be an expert teacher. And you have to use, as Randy just said, multiple measures, multiple ways of assessing, through interview, through looking at student achievement test score data, by looking at the kind of literacy approach that teachers has in their classroom, by just making sure they're meeting school benchmark assessments, that these teachers themselves, or even principal coaches, are outstanding in the work they do. It could be a terrible waste of money if we just had the status quo and people that aren't very good are teaching people how to be not very good. So again, it's stepping up that level of rigor. And the final point I want to make is tying this into a career lattice or a career ladder is critically important. It gives teachers a chance to see a pathway for a career that includes teaching kids, but also includes the best and the brightest teaching other teachers or other principals how to teach or be principals.
So I would just add, 10 years ago, when New Leaders for New Schools began a principal mentoring residency-based program, and we sort of pioneered, and many think of us as the leading national example of this kind of approach for school leadership. And what I would tell you is, I wish we'd known 10 years ago what we know now, because we learned a lot about what works and doesn't work. And I think the implications are very direct for the federal government. So just very briefly, one is there are a set of qualities that we've seen, a set of behaviors and qualities for school leaders that are very consistent for the school leaders that are getting big gains, and for whether people are becoming principals or principal mentors or teacher leaders who are moving into other leadership positions. There are a set of very consistent qualities that essentially boil down to people who understand how to drive instructional improvement with data, how to create cultures of high expectations and personal responsibility among adults in the school for student outcomes, code of conduct in the school that allows there to be kind of discipline and focus on learning with a caring environment, a focus on talent, finding great talent, developing great talent, evaluating talent well, and being willing to counsel people out and dismiss people when they've had support and had fair measures, but nonetheless shouldn't be in the school anymore. And finally, the personal leadership that they need. There's certain values of the blend of both having a spine to stand up for what's right, but having the interpersonal skills, the leadership to understand how to bring many, not everybody, but many people along. And those qualities, I think, they've been most programs selecting principals or mentors for principals haven't looked at those qualities. That's the other point I would just make is, no matter how good a program is, and our program I think is considered quite good, and I do think there's a role for external organizations like New Leaders for New Schools and partnering with school systems and others. In the end, I think the way this gets done at scale is through school systems that are both holding people accountable, but then have the dollars to really invest day in, day out in people's leadership, so that your mentor is not just your mentor, but your associate superintendent who's managing the principal understands how to play that role. That people are being held accountable in exchange for investments at all levels in the school system, from the time you're a third-year teacher to the time you're a master principal, or as what Ellen is saying, having career ladder and lattice. So the opportunity to do competitive grants, in my view, for programs and districts creating examples that could be documented and evaluated for how school systems could take what's learned and take it to scale is a big opportunity for the Senate.
Senator Bennett.